Welcome to News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa. Today is May 24th, a Sunday, episode 78. And I'm going to keep this very short, very, very short. We all saw yesterday another shooting at the White House or near the White House or where President Trump is located. And this really is due to the Democratic hate speech that has been going on. There's no doubt about that. So, 21-year-old mental patient who was allowed to roam around the city. He was from Maryland. Had a gun. Prior contact with the Secret Service, who could not have this person put away. Took out a gun and shot at a guard post on White House property. The Secret Service returned fire, killing what was his name? Nasir Best, and wounding a bystander that had nothing to do with the event, who was in serious condition in a hospital in Washington, where we hope he makes a full recovery. If you were to Google and also use Bing, you try to put in there, did Democratic leaders condemn the May 23rd, 2026 shooting at the White House? You can't find anything. Now, there were Democrats and who have said, hey, this is crazy, and the political rhetoric must be turned down. Well, the political rhetoric on violence is coming from the Democrats. 3 weeks ago, maybe even less than 3 weeks ago, I reported on Cory Booker at a speech in Wisconsin, where he demanded foot soldiers take to the streets to take back democracy. You had Hakeem Jeffries just last week say, we will by any means take back power and crush the souls of the GOP. I mean, hey guys, this is all coming back at you in ads. It's just, there's so much that can be used against you guys running in 2026. That there's no way. There's no way you're going to win. There's no way. You cannot get moderate Democrats on board with your rhetoric of getting Trump by any means. It's just not going to work, fellas. You're on very dangerous ground as it is. You can certainly question the agenda of the Republicans. That's not a problem. We can definitely look at the agenda of the Democrats. I don't think the Republicans are calling out for violence or takeover by any means. I haven't heard that. If you have heard that, you know, let me know. I don't mind someone saying we have to get this guy out of office, or vote and vote by voting. I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with Democrats just screaming impeach, impeach, impeach. It's so silly. It's stupid. It just goes to show, you got nothing else. That's what's going to happen. So J.D. Vance becomes president. That's what happens. And Vance gets to pick Ted Cruz or Rubio as his vice president. Because that's what would happen. But the shooting just goes again to show that the rhetoric of the Democrats has consequences. And I think that you're going to have people like Fetterman who going, hey, I honestly, I can't be part of this. This is the straw. This is the feather that tilted the scale. And you're going to have other Democrats who have left the party already. You just can't run on violence. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. You're going to have to face up to the fact that you have started something now you cannot contain. And I can understand you being upset that you lost districting, that you never should have had. And, you give a child candy and then you take the candy away from them after they've had it, tasted it. Yeah, they're going to be kicking and screaming. I understand that. I didn't think that the black caucuses would just go, well, it was a good run. It was good while it lasted. I definitely, would not expect that. I think the things that you've been seeing in the news with the fraud of the Democrats, Southern poverty law, we're seeing a lot of fraud and a lot of self-made hate groups being funded by them, where they create a situation where they gain by it. All orchestrated, almost just like the paid protesters who show up at these events and, scream and yell and, and then you look around and they all have the same signs in New York or California or Chicago. And some of them are the same people. That's why they wear masks, because of facial recognition. You could point out, hey, this guy was over here, this guy was over here, this girl is always over here. But they also don't understand that besides voice recognition and facial recognition, there's so many biometric recognitions that we know who you are. And not that you're doing anything illegally if you're protesting legally. But I think the proof is that you're disingenuous, The Democrats are disingenuous. The progressives are disingenuous. They don't care. They're just trying to stay or trying to get power. And the power that the Republicans had and the power that the moderate Democrats had, they earned it. They got voted in. But the progressives don't want that. And, you could just see it. It's our way or we'll burn everything down. And this has been a problem now brewing for some time. I think as we get into the political fast lane right now, you're going to see more people speaking out on the Democrats. I'm sorry, I normally do not drink coffee during my show. I have it here sitting. I need it today. You can say that this is an act of a lone wolf. This is an act of a mentally ill person. This is why we need mental health care and blah, blah, blah. The guy should not have been on the streets. We need to put people who are a harm to themselves and a harm to the general public. You got to just put them away, folks. And I realize it shouldn't be into a snake pit. These are human beings that, for whatever the reason is, can't function properly in our society. And as such, this society has a responsibility to take care of them. I have no problem with that. Mental health is a major problem. Some of it could be managed through medication and constant supervision of those people. And some people can live a pretty normal life as long as they take their medications. And it's a terrible thing. I agree. I'm sure those medications conflict with them. And I feel for them. But the flip side of it is if you don't do this, they're going to harm themselves or harm someone else. And if they can't, won't, unable, or unwilling to take their medication, then they have to be separated. And not persecuted or abused or anything like that, but they have to be taken out of the mainstream. Used to call it the nut hut. It's terrible. Not right. I get it. But those people were segregated by law. And then the ACLU fought in the 70s to release all these people. You can't hold them against their will. And this is what we have. We have a bunch of people out there that are really, really seriously a threat. Touch upon, a lot of screaming about Donald Trump and the IRS and the settlement, and there's still stuff we're going to find out about it. The settlement, as I have looked at it, it has not been an open book yet. But one of the settlements had to deal with a ongoing from 2000, I think, 2008 or 2010 tax situation of properties of Donald Trump's in Chicago, where I think he took a $165 million write-off. And in 2010, their IRS is saying they concluded that he might have taken that write-off twice, called double dipping. Now, from 2010 to 2015, private citizen Trump, they could have taken him to court. They could have went and said, this is what it is. He owes us, and if he refuses to pay it, then, Wesley Snipes him. They lock him up. But that was not the case. And then in 2016 through 2020, as president, they couldn't do anything with him. The case stopped, but they had from 2010 to 2015, and they never acted on it. It went back and forth, fighting it, and then from 2020 to 2024, private citizen again Trump. And I'm sorry, in 10 years of it being private citizen Trump, the IRS did not act, and it was not friendly territory for Donald Trump in those years. Has to tell me that the IRS knew that a challenge here would be very, chances are that the IRS would win. But there was also a very good possibility that the IRS would lose. And then it would become precedent. And other people could then go back and go, hey, you did that to me. I had to pay all this money, and that's legal. So what they end up doing is they make settlements that are just binding between the IRS and that one party. That's it. Doesn't mean they do it for anyone else. It's a one-off. And that is what they did. The IRS settled with Trump as part of this overall suit, and went further by saying, we can't look at any more prior stuff, because they were digging up stuff from, years ago. And normally what happens with the IRS is, if they don't question something in a certain amount of time, that's it. With the exception of fraud. If you purposely defrauded. Now, they couldn't prove that he purposely defrauded. What they did was conclude that there was a conflict on what they said is allowed under the IRS regulations for a deduction. And the Trump accountant goes, no, this is what it reads. This is what's been done. This is what others have done. You have done this. We have precedent. And would the IRS knew that it was a slam dunk, they'd take that right to court. And then the only thing that you could possibly do would be to, and if that was, you went through all the channels to try to mitigate it before it hit the courts. Once the Department of Justice takes that part over, only the Department of Justice can then conclude the outcome. The IRS can no longer negotiate with you. So when that happens, you lose, the IRS and the Department of Justice loses, then that becomes case law, and it could be used and shown as an example of, a particular case someone else makes. So they don't want to do that. Now, this was of course, really uncharted ground. And that's why Judge Kathleen Williams in the Southern District of Florida questioned Trump's legal team to say that normally you had to have an adversarial relation to have a suit. You try, you talk, and, no, not doing it. No, I'm not doing it. So I'll see you in court. Okay, then it goes. And you have to prove that, there was an adversarial event that resulted in an adverse situation. Under the IRS, they have certain categories, but injury is one of them. And this is where the judge said, well, I have a problem here. Because the president had the power to fix that injury by just taking a magic wand out that he possesses and can use, and said, make this go away, change the policy, do this. And as the word is spoken, the deed is done. So she said, you don't appear to have an adversarial relationship here that would be part one and then part two. I can't get to part two because I can't get past part one. So the parties agreed that they'll settle, which they are allowed to do. They have settlement authority. And that, you could put just about anything you want into that settlement as long as it's germane to your case. It would have to be, and this thing of going in and tearing into my taxes every time you think that's a way in through my front door. No, that's being weaponized. You've looked at it, you examined it, you had your problems with some of it, and we went back and forth with it, yet you never decided to pull the trigger on it. So now I want that gone. I want that out of here. So they do it. All right, they're not going to look back on any of your taxes, any of your family, any of your businesses, not so much your associates. Those people have the right then under this to go and make a claim. But that still has to be determined, and I think there's going to be 5 people on that, 4 picked by the Department of Justice or the president, and 1 outsider. I would have done it 3 people. So you almost like the appeals court, that you have to have a majority, and you'll always have a majority if I pick 4 of my best friends and then 1 person who hates me. I'll always have a majority. So that's there's questions that a person with common sense would question. I don't question whether or not he could make the settlement. I do not question whether or not he had the right to sue. As an American, you have the right to sue. Trump might be president, but he's still a citizen and retains all the rights thereof. So it is whether or not the separation, it was the question with that. The Voting Rights Act. We always said that, I mean, as a kid, it was always thrown out there that setting up lines by a person's color, race, political makeup, it was wrong because you game the system. You're creating seats where there should have been no seats in the House of Representatives. And it took 60 years to fix it, but the wheels of justice do grind slowly. And but to come out with the rhetoric and statements that you guys are making, Democrats, again, dangerous, and we have seen what happens. And I'm not saying that you cannot have a legitimate beef. That's politics. And the only way you win and can move your agenda for either party is by being in power. So you want to get that football across that goal line. But you can't threaten the opposing players with bodily harm. We've seen what the left has done. They've, they send fake pizza deliveries to homes to let people know we know where you live. See how easy it is to get to you? Doxing. We've seen the antics that they have used, intimidation. And that ain't going to work, fellas. We will marginalize you until you're just crazy people that you are on the corner, and people just go, oh my God, the poor parents. I'm sure that's not what the life they had for these children when they had them. So I'm going to end this at the 30-minute mark because that's, I said exactly what I was going to do. The Democrats are to blame for the violence that we are seeing. The Democrats are the ones to blame for the violence against ICE. The Democrats are to blame for the crimes being committed by illegals in sanctuary cities. The Democrats are to blame for the crime that is done by illegals. And then they go further by protecting them. Not protecting you, the citizen, but protecting the illegals from the consequences of their actions. You and I couldn't do that. We'd be arrested and we'd have to go to court. We'd have to get a lawyer and do all that. And when a illegal is arrested for a criminal act, they are afforded a lawyer. They get all the protection. Bob in New York. They get all that. Like you keep saying they're not getting. Please, read. And don't just read what you want to read. Read the whole paragraph. Read the difference between immigration and border patrol before you throw out, just you're speaking gibberish. All right, everyone, be safe. Please give to if you can, a charitable organization. They need help. Just make sure it's a legit organization. Don't become a victim while you're trying to help victims. If you're not interested in that, please think about giving to a local food bank where that help is immediate. It's actually taking place where you live. They also could use monetary contributions. And again, check them out. Most church groups have an organization, a religious group has organizations, and they're fine. They're fine. Say a prayer. Prayer does work, regardless of what a Democrat might tell you otherwise. And with that, I'm going to finish this up and just shove this out the door as quickly as I can. Going to be very little editing. And that's it. This is, again, May 24th. This is episode 78. All right. Thank you as I fade to black.